Hey folks, it's Patriot Nurse. Thanks for joining me today. In the lead up to the election, I want to cover a few things and really ask the question, is this the most important election of our lifetime? And not only that, but why are we so divided, and should we be trying to be united? So let's ask the last question first and then answer that one. Should we be trying to be united? Well, let's break down why it is that we are so divided in the United States right now. You have a faction in the United States that is essentially politically mobilized, spoiled children who have never been disciplined, who've never known consequences for breaking boundaries, and who have never ultimately been spanked and been confronted with force and pain for poor choices and for violating other people's boundaries. Reminds me, ironically enough, of preschool. Like, you've got that one kid who just wants to steal everybody else's toys. They're bullies. And for whatever reason, the teacher, did that ever happen to you at school? It's like you would be doing everything you're supposed to be doing, and then some other kid would try to steal your stuff, or some other kid would try and behave badly, and then you were somehow put on equal footing of, oh, you two need to just get along. It's like, no, this person needs to stop being a jerk. And in a way, when I hear people say, oh, we need to strive towards unity, that's what I think about. Because when you have one part of the country, a weaponized, radicalized faction of the country, bent on the destruction of the country, bent on stealing other kids' toys, bent on taking other people's things, it's not my moral imperative to be at peace with them. The moral imperative is on them to stop violating my boundaries. And it is the aloof, would-be elitist who says, oh, we just need to be united with this. We need to be united with someone who's doing something that's not appropriate. No. Unity without a common goal, without a common language, without a common culture, without a common frame of reference is no unity at all. In fact, what it does is it actively cuts out the corrective process that exists naturally whenever boundaries are violated. Force is met typically whenever boundaries are violated. If you invade a country, you can expect that there are going to be consequences. If you connect your fist with somebody else's face, you can expect that there's going to be consequences. So when there is a radical group of people either ignoring the lessons of the past, the warnings of the past, or hell-bent on implementing their twisted vision of the future without any care whatsoever as to the destruction that vision has caused in the past. I can't be united with that. I'm not going to be united with that. I'm not going to embrace that. There is nothing about that that makes me in any way, shape, or form want to just go along to get along. So when people say this is the most important election of our lifetime, okay, yeah, but what about the next one? What about the next 2 years? And what about the next 2 years? These are all important, but how we live each day is important. And so in the lead up to the 2020 election, it's bizarre for me personally, because I've got all this circulating in the back of my mind. But I don't have trepidation and anxiety. I have peace about it. For those of you who've been joining me for fasting and praying on Thursdays, you'll know that this is something that I've been embracing since April of this year. And I know that personally, I have done everything that I reasonably can. My dad used to tell me this before I go to school. He'd drop me off at school before I'd have a test or whatever. He used to embarrass the living daylights out of me. But I'd get out of the car and he goes, do your best and let God take care of the rest. Do your best and let God take care of the rest. I'm like, okay, Dad. I'm so embarrassed, as a middle schooler. I'm like, but it's true. Do your best and let God take care of the rest. I know that when the world is a stormy sea, that He is the peace that passes all understanding. So I've done what I needed to do. I've been as responsible and as diligent and as practically and pragmatically optimistic as I can be. And it's in God's hands. But this is our problems, and the seeds that were bearing fruit are just not suddenly going to cease bearing fruit come the results next week. They're still here because these problems that have borne fruit are people. They're people. Ideas themselves have no teeth. People implementing these flawed, failed, deathly ideologies like socialism. People who are ignorant of the past. People who have ignored all boundaries, have ignored and known no consequences their entire lives for generations, now given the vehicle of the political machine to legitimize them, they're bearing fruit that will also drop full seeds of its own on the ground for the next generation. Unless there is a drastic shift in this nation, we will not wake up one morning, favorable outcome or unfavorable outcome, with all of these problems erased. Quite the contrary. And I think most of us know that, if we're honest with ourselves. When the last election came through, the last presidential election, people breathed a sigh of relief because President Trump had gotten elected. And prepping took a nosedive for like a year and a half. All these sales, these arms sales, like there were companies that had like all this surplus they're sitting on. Oh, the fickleness and short-sightedness of man. And now people are all about it. It's a long game. It's not a short game. It's a long game. And so knowing that this is a long game, and knowing a game with serious and deathly consequences, really, knowing that that's where we're at, and knowing that it is a long game, regardless of what happens next week, I know in my heart, in the quiet place that I have before the Lord, that He has got me, and He is faithful to His covenant, and He is faithful to fulfill all of His promises. Not one jot or one tittle will pass away until all of His words have been accomplished, and heaven and earth are witnesses on that. So I have peace in the midst of this, pragmatic optimism, and I'm going to be in fasting and prayer on the election day. And for those of you who feel so inclined, I would ask you to join me. I'm going to still obviously do live stream on Sunday live stream. But this is, I definitely feel a spiritual component to what's going on. I feel that there's a lot of spiritual warfare involved and just a lot of deception. And really, when it comes to deception en masse, you always have spiritual warfare going on. And so we have to, as believers, pray that the Lord will open the eyes of people who perhaps are just simply deceived but not dedicated into the darkness. There are people who are 100% dedicated into the darkness, but then there are people who are just well-meaning people, but simple, deceived, historically illiterate, ignorant. And ignorance is excusable, but only when there's honesty and humility. A humble and honest person, when confronted with their own lack of historical understanding, can correct the error of their ways. But when you combine arrogance with ignorance, that's not a good place to be. At some point, we all have been guilty of this in our lives. But the question is, does it bother us? Does it bother us when we do the checkup from the neck up and we realize it ourselves, and are we willing to do what needs doing? That's the difference between somebody I can unify with versus somebody I'm like, nope, stay on your side of the fence, man. That's the difference. I hope it was helpful for y'all today. If you did enjoy the video, I hope you'll subscribe to me here on YouTube, Patriot Nurse. You can also support me on Patreon, Subscribestar, Cryptocurrency, and PayPal. I got links down there below. Join me for Sunday live stream. It should be 7 p.m. Eastern time on Sunday, guys. So, be an interesting next few days. May the Lord bless and keep you all. For now, it's Patriot Nurse signing off. I'll see y'all later. Bye.